it was finally close to graduation that a friend of mine introduced me to ZBrush, and
Okay, now we're talking.
now we're talking. Now the good stuff. Now, right?
You're
Yeah.
listening to Art Heroes Podcast, the show to help you thrive as a digital artist. Tune in to learn how to transform your passion into a career. Get inspired by other kick-ass 2D and 3D artists, and find out what it takes to be an art hero.
Welcome to the episode 2 of the Art Heroes podcast, guys. I'm your host, Maria JD, and today we're meeting Steven Anderson, a concept modeler from Walt Disney Imagineering, where he works sculpting attractions for Disneyland Parks. Steven talks about what it takes to build a career at top-notch studios and what he's striving for after that many years in the industry. Let's get going.
Thanks again, Steve, for being on the call. I'm actually pretty pumped about this episode because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you've got a very, very specific thing, to your type of art and to the type of work that you do. That is like really, really exciting, and it's kind of one of the classic things that people think like, oh, I want to do 3D because I want to create that exactly that thing that that you're actually creating. So
Well,
thanks
thank
again
you.
for being on the call, and let's dive into it. So
Well, thanks for having me.
come on, like the pleasure is all mine. So let's just start from like the very beginning. Like, can you just explain exactly what you do and what type of projects you work on, like, kind of now?
Well, so currently I work at Walt Disney Imagineering. I am a 3D concept modeler, so I do a lot of sculpting, a lot of 3D modeling, and everything that I make is for rides and attractions at Disneyland Parks around the world, primarily in Disneyland Tokio.
Wow.
Yeah, I also teach a stylized character creation class at Noman, so it's fun. I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And I'm just wondering if it's if the reality of it is as fun as it sounds, because creating 3D pieces for Disney World attractions sounds like, the best job in the world. Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God.
it's pretty exciting. It's so fun because so for instance, I'm primarily working on stuff for the Tokyo park. They're making this expansion to Tokyo Disney Seas, um I've worked on almost all the rides for that area, um and then some of the attractions too going into that. But then so when they finish building that here in another 3 years time, whenever it is, we're going to go and we're going to enjoy the fruits of my labor. It's like
Of course.
it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, like, do you actually ever go to the Disney parks, like, just, I don't know, for inspiration or for work, or it's like, or you can't see it anymore?
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we went to Disneyland this summer with the kids and my wife, and I was just bubbly and just kind of because we don't go very often. It's like, I work for the company, and we live an hour away from the park, but we don't go very often because it's killer expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
But
know. Like, so like, did you look at it like, I don't know, from the eyes of the creator or from the eyes of the father? Like,
both, yeah, it's really fun because it's fun. Since I started that job, I've gotten to learn and start doing, like how it is that these things are made. Like, I know how everything's made now. I know the secrets of what it looks like underneath the surface. I know what goes into creating what you see, and so I was able to geek out with the kids and like, hey, look, this is and we cut things like this, and then we put it together with this stuff, and underneath it looks like, it's just it was funny, and I think the kids, the people behind us in line were like, "Can this guy just shut up? ruining You're ruining the experience by talking about how it was made. You're stupid."
Oh man, this is fun. A quick question. I was just wondering, you said like in 3 years time when it's like all like finished, is it like the pipeline, you're saying that the pipeline is that long? Like, from like the time when you actually like create the piece to the time when it's actually built.
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot that goes into it. So it's interesting. Like if you were to do like a public art installation, um, you could do the whole process within a year's time. But because we have to worry about architecture, building codes. We have to worry about infrastructure, things like wiring and other engineering things, water,
Mm-hmm.
electricity, gas, all those types of things. Everything that goes into it, they have to actually build the facilities. They have to make sure that all the ride mechanics are working. Yeah, there's a ton of manufacturing that goes into it, and it is interesting to me that it does take that long. But
Okay.
but yeah, it takes
Okay.
several years.
Well, I mean, like, I guess the reward in the end is that eventually, yeah, you will see your, like, like your creation for many more years to come, and like millions of people literally, like, seeing it
Right.
every day, and like, yeah, every month for
Yeah, and
sure.
that's the idea. That's the idea of making something that'll last for decades. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, like, help me to understand that a little bit better. So, do you like how closely do you work with concept artists, or do you work with concept artists at all? Like, do you influence the concepts at all? Like, or like, what's kind of your chunk of the pipeline?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I do work very closely with other artists, with concept artists, with interior designers, with architecture, with the art director, um, and other artists across other disciplines too, just to make sure that everything is working to certain codes. That like there are lighting artists, so people who work with putting in projectors and lights and speakers and all sorts of things like that I have to be aware of when I'm creating the stuff in 3D. But then I get to use the reference from concept. I get to use real life reference, other rides, things like that, and all that kind of comes together. I get to essentially use that in conjunction with my own artistic discretion and
Hmm.
put things together in a way that looks good and makes sense and is functional. And it's interesting because all the while, like there's artistic input from the concept artist that I have to take into
Well, like
uh
consideration, I guess. Like,
consideration. Thank you. Yeah, I have to take that into consideration, and I have to make it look good. But then there's a ride path that I have to be very careful of. That, like, if the ride were to malfunction, it doesn't very often. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying that like you should be afraid if you go to Disneyland. It is the happiest place on earth, and they do a lot to make sure that it's super super safe. But they do take a lot of precautions. Like if the ride vehicle were to go crazy,
yeah,
and like they take into consideration how far that vehicle would go haywire, like how
yeah,
far that could reach, um and we call that the ride path. And so if that ride path, that envelope is if anything's going through that, it's considered a danger. It's considered, it could possibly get damaged if the vehicle were to go out of control.
okay,
Um,
okay. Yeah, so like basically there are a lot of things to consider, and yeah, like as an artist, I guess you're part of like a really big team in your case. So it's not only like
it's a
your
fairly small team, but yeah, there
okay.
are there are a lot of different disciplines that go into it. Yeah.
It's very interesting, like because that's really like a more of like intersection of actually like, like digital art and yeah, like many other disciplines from like architecture to like interior design to like lighting. It's like really, really exciting, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like to what extent, like I really love that you mentioned that you put your artistic sense in, in all of your like work. Where is the limit to your style, or do you see your style at all in things that you create? Is there how much of yourself can you put in your work?
At Disney, it's fairly limited.
Hmm.
Like how much of me I can put into it, especially like just with projects that I've been dealing with lately. There may be opportunities further down the line, to when I get different figure sculpting projects for toys or things like that, where I can add a little bit more of my own edge design, being
Yeah.
able to stylize planes a little bit, things like that. It gets to be a little bit tricky when you're dealing with things that are intellectual property. They have a very specific look, and if you try to take it too far towards your own style when you're working with something that already has a very specific look and design, you're working underneath an art director. It's harder to keep your job when you do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so, do you think that your personal style is like far from what you create? Like, do you like struggle at all with this, like, artistic bipolarity, or like, or that's not an issue, or like, like you can perfectly like match the guidelines and then create your own things, on your time?
Right. Yeah. No, I feel like my tendencies tend to lean more toward the Disney style. Like that's kind of what I prefer. That's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I spent several years trying to develop that and get closer to that. And as it evolves, I evolve too. And maybe not in the same ways, but I try to evolve as well. And it's fun. I don't feel like it's super different or challenging in those sorts of ways. But
Yeah, because I was just like, like looking through your I don't want to say portfolio, but just like, like everything that you put out there online. And I was also thinking to myself, wow, this is, there are so many like at the level of style similarities. So do you think it somehow you got this influence from Disney, from your work, or it's just like, or you fit in Disney because of your style? Like what came first?
so a lot of my style kind of came before starting at Disney, and in a lot of ways it's what got me the job. When I was interviewing for my job, my art director was looking through my work, and she said, "Oh, your style, your sculpting style, I like this, and this could fit in really well for what we're doing." And it was really funny because after she said that, I was like, I walked away from that interview saying, yes, they're going to call me back. I'm going to be starting next week. We're going to be good, you know. I felt like I nailed it. Everything was good, right? So it wasn't for another 3 or 4 months that they actually called me back and said, okay, you're starting Monday, I was
Okay,
like,
so that
oh
was
my
kind of
god,
a preliminary excitement.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you were right eventually.
Yeah, it just took a while. But it's fun, it's a really good company to work at, but they do go slow, so.
Yeah. All right. So, like I just wanted just to take a step back, like to kind of the world before Disney, or like kind of your own world before Disney. So, like starting from the very beginning, why did you actually even go into like 3D modeling?
It was really interesting. I had kind of a lot of conflicting interests before I got into 3D modeling. Before I decided on it for sure, right? So like I started in high school. I was fortunate enough that they had a 3D animation class at the time, and a friend of mine invited me to take the class with them, and it just blew my mind that that would even be an option. Um, so I went ahead, I enrolled in the class and took it, and I fell in love with it. I just thought it was super cool, and it was amazing to think that it would be a job someday, like I mean, people make movies. This is cool.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I went through and did that. I went to Brigham Young University because they have one of the most the
So that
most
was so the you did the art class at the university as well. So something like digital art related.
well, so yeah, so they I went through their animation program because
Okay.
it's one of the best programs in the world,
Yeah. Okay.
because of the way it's run. It's run like the industry. You get a student film project every year, and it's run by the students. They have student directors, producers, all the cast, all the crew, everybody. We're all students, and so we get that production environment experience while we're in school. Um,
Wow, that sounds super
yeah.
exciting. I mean, like actually being, like being able to create something like, yeah, while at school.
Right. It was really neat. It was a great experience, and it was fun being able to work in that collaborative environment, and it gave me a chance to essentially get my feet wet in uh, all sorts of different disciplines, all sorts of different roles. So I got to play with animation, and I loved animation for a long time, and I did storyboarding, and I did concept work. I did 3D modeling, and the one that I kept coming back to was 3D modeling. It
Right.
was, it's and then my wife, she kept encouraging me, saying, yeah, that's what you seem to be best at. It seems to be what you enjoy the most. You should consider just making that your emphasis, and just focusing on that. And yeah, I was so much on the fence about so many different things, but it was finally close to graduation that a friend of mine introduced me to ZBrush, and
Okay, now we're talking.
now we're talking. Now the good stuff now, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like, it blew my mind. It's like I had done box modeling, standard modeling stuff inside of Maya, and I loved that. But then all of a sudden there's this dynamic mesh that you can just sculpt, and it's like clay on the computer, and it's like, I need this.
Wow.
And
Yes. No,
so,
totally understand that.
yeah, so I dove in, and it was probably one of my favorite things. And then all of a sudden, after I got introduced to it, I started seeing it pop up on all sorts of um, job applications that I was trying to apply for. I was getting ready to graduate, needed a job, and it said, you need to know ZBrush. So I went ahead and I dropped $700, bought ZBrush, and
Yeah.
haven't looked back since.
So, did you teach yourself, like, or did you do like in terms of, practically like ZBrush? Like, how'd you go about, like getting more comfortable with it, and like being able to use it professionally?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't a whole lot of resources at the time. There were a few videos on like Z Classroom, and those were helpful, but yeah, primarily it was just me digging in, and in essence teaching myself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun going that route. It's pretty difficult sometimes, because I mean, you can't really ask yourself questions and get reliable answers. It's kind of
Yeah.
tricky.
You probably
But yeah,
also can't give yourself a realistic feedback about things.
right, right. And my first sculpts, I mean, for a few years, I mean, they were terrible.
All right. Now we're getting vulnerable. I mean, like, no, but seriously, like, whose sculpts were not terrible? Like, yeah, I know. Like, it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Everybody goes through it, but
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. And so what was your first job eventually?
So I did a lot of freelance at first. My first study job, I'd kind of started while I was in school.
Hmm.
I did motion graphics and animation. And it was all right. It paid pretty well for a job up in Utah. So I was able to support the family. My wife could comfortably stay home, take care of our daughter. And then, yeah, I mean, things were working out pretty well. The hard thing about that job was that it wasn't a reliable job. It wasn't something that I could depend on all year round. It was really busy the last 6 months of the year, but
Okay.
then the first 6 months of the year, there was no work. It was slower than peanut butter. I mean, it was so bad. Um,
Yeah,
so
okay. So basically there is like there was definitely something to improve in terms of, yeah, I guess the employer. So that, like, did you just go back to the job market?
yeah, so all the while, I mean, I did a lot of freelance, trying to stay involved. I mean, 3D modeling was kind of what I was wanting to get into, and so I did a lot of freelance. I did a lot of personal projects. I wasn't able to get internships, and so that was kind of heavy. That was hard. I feel like if I had gotten an internship, I would have had a lot easier time getting the job that I wanted.
Yeah, 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 no, of course.
but but yeah, I mean, different
So
struggles.
yeah, but like, so now, when because as yeah, as you said, and as I know, like, you teach as well. So like, when you speak to students, and when they ask you, like, what's the easiest way to break through in the, for somebody who's just like starting the career in this whole, like, in this whole world as a digital artist, what's, like, your the best advice that you would always give? I don't know, like, would you even recommend, like, looking for a steady job, or like freelancing? Like, how would you, what's your approach to that now, knowing what you know?
Well, I always recommend a steady job over freelance. And there will be people that'll fight me on that, I'm sure, but
Yeah, it's a matter of opinions. I'm sure it's also like a matter of different
yeah.
lifestyles.
Yeah, different lifestyles for sure. Because like I've got friends that like to move around, that like to, they don't like to be tied down to a specific location. So if they wanted to, maybe they want to go spend a few months living in Ireland, or maybe they want to go and live in South Korea, and I don't know, whatever it is that they choose, they can, because they're freelance and they can work from wherever they are. For myself, um, I like having a family. My family doesn't like moving around. We want to have a home, things like that. And so really, it kind of just, it depends on what lifestyle you want. So that's one of the recommendations that I have. I like the steady full-time job where I know that I can go every day, and then I don't have to worry about being there a ton
Yeah.
of hours. I get to set my own schedule, things like that. But I know that I have a job that I can go to every day. And I can work toward, owning a home and things like that. I don't have to worry about, selling all my stuff every 6 months because I'm
Yeah,
moving to
no, of
another.
course. Something more dependable, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's less stress for the family. So it's nice in that respect.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so, like, if we're talking, like, jobs, like, do you remember now how long did, like, it took you actually, like, like, to secure like a position every time? I don't know how many times you were, like, back to the job market in, like, creative industry, but, like, like a rough estimate of, like, how long it takes from the time when you're like, okay, I'm changing the job, or like I'm getting my first job, to actually, like, getting the first paycheck.
Uh,
I mean, I know
Before,
it depends, but
right. Yeah. It kind of varied a little bit, but there was, yeah, up until the time that I was hired on at Warner Brothers, there was there was a lot more time between gigs. They weren't as nice of projects, things like that. And so, like, up until getting hired on at Warner Brothers, things were much more spaced out, and it was a lot less reliable, a lot lower pay, things like that. But then I had this, you know, a little bit of a big break where I got hired on at Warner Brothers Games, and then and that's when things started to kind of pick up. I had gone through Warner Brothers Games, and after working there for a while, was offered a job at DreamWorks, and so we left to come down here to LA to be able to work at DreamWorks. And after that's when I got hired on at Disney. And so the space between the gigs became a lot smaller and the gigs got bigger.
Wow.
And
Well,
so,
but you're like, you're hitting all the big titles. That's, like, I guess one.
yeah, very, very big name places now. And it's like, it takes a while sometimes, but I mean, if you're focused and determined, and for sure that this is what you want to do, you know, and if you have the right support too. I mean, if my wife were not supportive like she is, I would not have been able to make it like this.
Wow. Okay. That's yeah, I know there is a merit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So the starting point is the most difficult one, like I guess like the breakthrough point when
absolutely.
you're just like kind of entering. So what do you think helped you to differentiate yourself? And I don't know, actually, like that's just yeah, that's just a mere guess that you were differentiating. Maybe you were blending. Maybe it's just quite the opposite. So what actually helped you to get in there? Like, do you like reflecting again, like back at the time, why you and not somebody else? Like, was it something
Um,
that you did for your portfolio? Was it something that you did in your like schooling? Is that like, I don't know, like, did you know like some special people or?
yeah, so networking is a huge thing. I feel like that's one of my strongest attributes, is that I'm really good at networking. I know how to find people to network with. I know how to talk to people. It's kind of I mean, for me it's fun. I like being able to just chat with people and get to know them, establish a relationship, and then after I feel like I can trust them, I know I get to a point where I can decide, okay, is this somebody that I can ask for feedback? Is this somebody that I can ask about job opportunities? And that way I can kind of go wiggling around and finding a better foothold for myself. And
Sure.
so networking is huge. But also at the time when I was hired on at Warner Brothers, I had started teaching at a local university before that, which I feel like that was a really cool opportunity for me, because I, I got to see my skills progress at a really quick rate, as I taught people who were trying to do the things that I knew how to do.
That's like that's a very interesting insight, I think. And like, thanks for sharing that, because I also believe that the best way to learn and perfect something is actually to go and teach that. Sometimes there is definitely this I guess the vision that the teacher knows everything, but sometimes we as teachers also learn from the students and like become even better teachers and better experts, like by sharing the knowledge. So like all the knowledge is better shared. So like, do you still see that now, like while you teach at Noman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm just starting with this Noman teaching job. We're 7 weeks into my first term, and it's a lot of fun. And it's interesting because I feel like my rate of growth with Noman will probably be a lot faster, a lot higher, a lot stronger than it was with my first teaching job, because I mean, a lot of the students there, I mean, they're incredible. It's such a an incredible school, incredible talent. And so my personal growth will probably be a lot more accelerated teaching at Nomen, because I'm essentially teaching my competition, it's
Yeah. Yes, and this looks exciting, like right? And for yourself, for like your personal growth, what's the next thing that, like what are the skills that you still want to improve?
Oh, for me, I'd love to improve on things like likeness. Like, I don't know, I'd like to be able to do like a photorealistic portrait of a person. I think that'd be really, really stellar. I'm trying to think in different. Yeah, I mean, I want to get stronger at things like texturing. I want to get stronger at maybe learn rigging, so
Yeah.
I can animate a character. Things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So basically, and like how do you go about your own like skills improvement like now?
I buy a lot of tutorials.
Seriously? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I that's and it's cool because I mean, here in the States, anything that I buy for my personal growth and education and development, all that is tax deductible.
Okay.
So I can write that off on my taxes, and it's, I mean, it's helpful to me, and it's less expensive that way.
But yeah, but if like if I may ask, like what's like do you have anything like an annual budget for your own education? Like, and do you even recommend dedicating budget to that, or you think that like it's kind of see how it goes and just kind of decide, or just like what you do?
Yeah, to me, it's I try I don't go crazy with it, because yeah, I mean, money's money, and you need money to live, right?
Sure.
Budgeting is a really good thing to be able to do. My wife is really good at it. I'm like, I only buy a tutorial if it's something that I feel genuinely interested in learning. Like, I feel like I absolutely need it to learn and progress. Um, yeah, there are a lot of good resources out there, and I feel like if I want to be able to contribute to the world in that sort of way, I can go through, make my own resources, put them out there for other people to learn from. I've got a few tutorials I'm working on
Yes, I've
personally.
seen those. That's great. I mean, like actually you've got quite a bit of resources across like different platforms. And I think
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. Like anything like from Gumroad to like yeah, like I've
right.
seen like a huge number of links from your website. We'll make sure we'll put it on the show notes, because there is like a lot of yeah, there's just like such a variety
Oh,
from like
thanks. Yeah, I'm hoping
molding
to.
and yeah,
Yeah,
and even stickers. Love the stickers.
yeah. The stickers are so much fun.
Yeah.
I'll have to send you some.
Yes, yes, please. Like we'll go straight to my laptop or somewhere else.
Yes.
Yes. Let's just touch a little bit on like, resource creation side. Is it for you a way to give back, or like why do you, or is just like, you have free time? Is it, part of the big strategy, or you're just like trying different things?
So a lot of what I'm trying to look for personally is ways to be able to earn passive income.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a way to be able to kind of pay it forward in a way. Things that I went through and spent thousands of dollars to learn. Trying to make stuff available to people for a lot a lot less money than
Yeah.
that. And yeah, so I feel like, yeah, mostly it's just trying to pay it forward a little bit, but I'm also trying to earn passive income. So something that I spend, a few hours on,
Mhm.
can pay off in a a faster way than going to work and
No,
working several
definitely.
hours.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I think that's also like really great to remember that there are so many unconventional ways to kind of earn money as a digital artist. It's not only like your job that can eventually pay your bills. There's also like some micro ideas and like side hustles that are
Yeah.
available out there.
Yeah. And oh, I guess kind of going along with this and kind of referring back to your question from before, things I want to learn or get better at. I really like the idea of learning how to better present ideas, presenting things in a consecutive manner. And I feel like by doing tutorials, by teaching, it helps me to be able to think about and process my thoughts in a way that makes more sense in a linear fashion of going from A to B to C.
Yeah, yeah, of course. You're talking about articulating the ideas and like in and like for educational purposes and like for in your teaching and in the tutorials that you make.
Right. Yeah. And making sure that ideas come across in a clean and efficient manner.
Yeah,
Right.
and
So,
I think it's
yeah.
actually really hard to do, like now that you said that, because there are so many teachers out there, but not every teacher is good. Not every teacher goes down to the point and like,
Right.
builds this sequence for you that it kind of, like helps, makes you connect the dots. And especially like that's true for like the ever evolving technology when you need to make sure that you're also like looking into the future all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that gets tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. And like, like touching a little bit on the technology, is there like any specific thing that excites you about like, what like, the future? So because you're a little bit into, or maybe a lot, into 3D printing. Yeah, and there are so many opportunities, or it seems so with this. So is there any other maybe specific technology that you're really like studying now?
I know that like different software packages are really exciting to me. Things that I want to get into and learn better. Things
Okay.
with Substance Painter, Substance Designer,
Okay.
getting better at the workflows with those. But I don't know. I really like milling,
Okay.
which is kind of like a subtractive 3D printing, right? It's kind of the
Sure.
reverse.
Yes.
And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
has a little bit of a different process for production than 3D printing does. And so, I've been trying to work on learning what those differences are and how my workflow needs to be different when preparing something for milling versus 3D print. We do a lot of milling and a lot of 3D printing at work, so it's really kind of nice to be able to have that work experience be something of a training too, so that I can learn those things. It's
Yeah,
kind of nice.
sure. One question that I really wanted to ask, because you're trying so many things now, and at the same time you've got this really exciting, like full-time thing of yours. So, like, do you, where do you see kind of yourself in, I don't know, like let's say 5 or 10 years? Which direction do you want to go? And yeah, or maybe something ambitious that you want to take or to take on.
Quite honestly, so I love my job. My job is fantastic, and I'll stay there as long as they keep me. They seem to really like me there,
Okay.
um,
I
and they
love
rely
that.
on me very heavily. But one of the things that I would love to do is I would love to just illustrate books with my wife. She writes. She likes to write, and she does these little children's books, and love to be able to illustrate those for
Wow.
and that's something that's I've already started working on one, but because of time commitments it's kind of hard to do. So I'd love to be able to take lots of time off at some point, just to be able to focus on that, or to be able to work on my own tutorials or work on my own toys, be able to work on my own thing. If you're working for a company, you get a certain amount of income from that. It's you don't get, my income is not the same amount as Bob Iger. He owns Disney, he gets all the dollars. you know if I'm doing my own thing, I get, you know I'm the Bob Iger of my own life.
Yes.
So that's kind of the thing that we're shooting for. That's why we're kind of looking for ways to be able to get passive income, tutorials or products or things like that,
Yeah.
books, because that passive income will allow us to have more time, and time's kind of what we want to be able to have. So
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that, the approach of kind of, like engineering your own life and the income and like designing the lifestyle behind this. One last thing that I have for you is the very quick questionnaire. It's like 10 questions. So you're welcome to answer in like one sentence, one word, whatever you feel like. So I'll go ahead. So what's your favorite place in the world?
the Huntington Library.
While you're working, what are you listening to?
Movies, TV shows, music. Currently, I'm listening to Agent Carter. I haven't watched it before, so I'm kind of listening to that as I work. It's kind of interesting.
Your best way to gain inspiration?
Observation.
Okay.
I don't know. I like to take inspiration from life around me, but I also like to scroll through Instagram pretty regularly. So Instagram's pretty good.
This is so honest.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, no.
no point being dishonest, right?
Sure. Okay, the big life goal.
Become financially self-reliant and relying on my own, sort of.
Yeah, on yourself,
Yeah.
like basically, yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So that we getting that passive income rolling.
Yes. Perfect. Your favorite drink?
Ooh, root beer.
First thing you do in the morning after you wake up?
I pray.
If you didn't become a digital artist, what would your backup career be?
So in high school, before I started those animation classes, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to study reef genetics. I wanted to focus on coral reproduction and coral health, and I was really interested in that. I was already looking at schools to go to and things like that. Yeah.
I should definitely create a group of biologists/artists. Seriously, like you're the person number 3 that I know from, like big names out there that that had like biologists, like that were
Really?
biologists in their second career. Seriously, that's not a joke.
That's funny.
That's funny. Yes. I think there is definitely something about that. Moving on. Is there a book or a movie that you can recommend?
I love the books. I love Mitch Albom books.
Okay.
Mitch Albom he's the author.
Uh-huh.
He has a whole bunch of books. I mean, there's like The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. There's Tuesdays with Maury. There's One More Day or something. I can't remember what that's called. But there's this. Just really, they're nice books. They're good reads, and you feel attached to the characters.
Oh, love that. I'll go ahead and mark it actually on my Goodreads. Yeah.
But I also like Peter and the Starcatchers. It's about, it's kind of the origin story of Peter Pan, and those are really fun too.
Cool. So, what is one thing that motivates you to work more?
My family, my wife in particular.
Top 3 things on your bucket list. Obviously, except Tokyo Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, my wife wants to go back to Europe.
Okay.
I've never been. I'd love to go on like European tour with her sometime.
All right.
Probably with the kids. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I know. No, I've got 2 of my own. I'm like, I'm with you and probably.
And then I'd love to be able to go back to Chile too. I lived there for a couple of years, and I love Chile, and I love Spanish, and just being around that more would be awesome.
Are we living in that too? Because number 1 was Tokyo Disneyland.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a little bit of an internal joke now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. So, like that was the last one and like number 10. Thanks so much. We're,
Oh,
we're
thank you.
pretty much done. That was really interesting and like I really appreciate again you being on the show and it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing all these details. It's been like
Well,
really cool to know.
thanks for having me. And it was it was an honor to be asked.
Yes, come on.
Thanks for listening to Art Heroes Podcast. Check out www.artheroes.co for show notes, more interviews, and free tools made for you by our team of mentors. Tune in next week for more inspiration, and keep up the great work, hero.